This video contains gratuitous use of profanity and uncomfortable pauses to compensate for lack of professionalism and original thought. Viewer discretion advised.
We bring you the Nerdy Manroom Show with your host, Hassel and Monster. Monster, how we going today?
Not too bad. It's been a busy couple of days, but we're making it through. And so we're gonna start off the show today. As always, we're thanking our sponsor, the Zone Collectibles, located in Tifton, Georgia. You can find them on the internet at thezonecollectibles@gmail.com or on Facebook at the Zone Collectibles. Visit them for all your nerdy needs, from comics to Legos, trading cards, toys, games, and more. And help them support the local artist community through their cause of bringing unity through community. Fandoms unite. Instead of mentioning what we're going to cover in the news, is we're actually going to do the show a little bit different this week. We've had we've both been very busy the last couple of days, so we haven't had time to put all of our normal news topics together. So we're actually going to try a different format and just kind of ease out of the news this week and maybe share some more next go around. But this time we really wanted to focus more on our focus topics and make sure we have plenty of time to talk about that, which I think we can lead into if you check out Hassel's nice TARDIS shirt there.
We are talking about the Doctor.
You actually have a sonic screwdriver. I didn't know that.
I actually have a sonic screwdriver. I mean, got the shirt. I got the TARDIS tattoo. Got my screwdriver.
This is probably one of the few properties I don't own anything of. I've looked at buying a few different things, and every time I look at it, I end up not doing it. But I don't know that I necessarily want action figures or anything of it. I've thought about a sonic screwdriver, and I've looked at some like the cookie jars and stuff, or the display stands, or whatever that look like the TARDIS. But I've never actually bought anything of it.
I don't own a lot. My daughter actually bought me that one for Christmas one year because she knows what a nerd I was. I have a blanket that my sister got me a couple of years back. That's the TARDIS basically, and this shirt. Other than that, I don't really have anything either. But
I will admit that when I changed my bed from a king back to a queen size and got the motorization and all in it to sleep better, I was actually going to buy a queen size TARDIS comforter, but it was going to take like 3 weeks to get it off Amazon. I was like, nah, I need something sooner than that. So I ended up going with Star Wars instead because I could get it within 2 days. But I was going to go that route just to have something of them, but it just didn't work out.
So what you're saying is the Millennium Falcon is far faster than a TARDIS.
Well, in that case it was, but Amazon beats everybody, so.
Yeah. Makes the parsec run in how many parcels, or what was the line?
What was it? Makes Kessel run in 12 parsecs, which still makes no sense considering that's not a measure of speed, but of time necessarily. But
George thought no one would look into this.
The nerds around today look into everything.
This is true.
But since we're talking about the Doctor, I think one of the first things for me is, clarifying the difference between. So it's a 50-year run, almost 60 at this point, right? It should be coming up on
59. 60. Next November will be 60 years. Actually.
So, you look at that and you say, well, that's a long run. How much of this stuff have you actually seen or been part of? But I always break it into two sections. There's the classic, which to me stopped at the point of the 8th Doctor's live movie that was made for Fox Network and stuff, which was his only televised appearance, and then the modern, which starts up in 2005, because that was in like 95 or 96 or something along those lines, and nothing was done for many years. So I look at it as classic and modern.
You almost have a BC and AD when it comes to Doctor. And which the Doctor you were talking about, the 96 one, he did get the revival to lead into the War Doctor deal, but
that was his only 2 televised appearances. Yeah. He actually had a stage show for it. He actually had a bunch of radio and audio books for it. And some radio shows, I should say, and audio books that were published about it, as well as just written books. But he had a ton of stuff about his. It just wasn't televised. But I'll be honest and say I love the modern stuff. I really wasn't a huge fan of the classic. There was some of it I liked, but when I came into it, the first time I saw it was the third Doctor, and he was stuck on Earth, and I just didn't get it, and I didn't care for it because that was on public television for us at the time.
Yeah,
I just didn't like
it
that
was
one.
on PBS at the time. That's usually when I saw it when I was younger. Was late at night. I just for whatever reason I remember it coming on late on a Saturday night or Friday night maybe, and it was to be honest, like I remember the Fourth Doctor was the first I was introduced to, and it
So
scared the hell out of me. It
I
scared the
saw
hell out of me.
I saw some of his, and his were quirky, and some of his I actually enjoyed as a kid when he was more quirky but funny. But some of his where he was quirky serious, he was creepy, and I
He had
just
a
couldn't get in.
sinister side to him occasionally.
It was hard for me to get into it, but the first ones I saw were the third one. And with him being stuck on Earth and you didn't have the time travel and everything, it's just he's an alien on Earth, but he looks like a human and he fights a few aliens, but I just didn't get it. I didn't care much for it back then. The fourth one got me into it a little bit more, and I actually started enjoying more of his stuff, but it was random watching because you said it was on late at night, but it was on several times a day actually for our public television.
It may have been.
I would catch
always
it sometimes
remember
in the
it
afternoons
that
or the
time.
mornings, but it'd be like weird days, like Wednesday afternoon, it's on at 3:00, and then you don't see it again until Friday night. And then on Saturday and
Yeah.
Sunday, they may run a marathon of it because it's either that or what was the other one that was always on there, Downton Abbey or whatever. It's one of those two was going to be on public television all weekend long as a marathon.
That or a great deal of Justin Wilson, one of the three there.
And during the week, there was times too where it would come on after like Reading Rainbow with Geordie LaFour's there, and that was you had to watch that as a kid back then.
Had to. I want to bring out the song right now, but I'm not going. I'm gonna spare these poor people's ears. But yeah, I wasn't as huge a fan then of the Fourth Doctor. Looking back now, I look upon it fondly, and I went back and watched some episodes back over. But it really kicked off for me. I got back into watching it around, I would say, probably about mid the first season with David Tennant. I kept hearing good things, and
Yeah.
I went back and watched. When what's his name, Christopher
Eccleston.
took over as the Ninth Doctor. So I kind of went back and I watched up through, and that's where I kind of got back into it.
I did the same thing, but before we even get to that, I'm going to go against what most people think, is most people hate the Eighth Doctor movie that was made by Fox and it was made in America versus by BBC, and it was supposed to be a backdoor pilot to a show, but I actually really enjoyed that movie. That one got me more into wanting to see more of it, because after that one I went back and watched some more of the Fourth and Fifth Doctor, and I can honestly say I don't remember if I ever watched any of the Sixth and Seventh up to him, but the Seventh one was in that movie. He dies at the first of that movie. It's actually the same actor, but he regenerates into the Eighth one, and I actually liked that movie when it came on, and you can't go wrong with Eric Roberts as a villain for the movie when he was
gosh, no. God,
he was a villain in every 80s movie, except for Best of the Best.
Not Best of the Best.
The only one where he got to be the good guy. But I like that movie, man. I don't know if you ever watched it or not, but I enjoyed it.
Honestly, I didn't catch that. I really, to be frank with you, I didn't even know of it until I got to when I seen what is it? I forget the title of it at the moment, but the little small mini movie they done to lead up into the War Doctors episode.
Yeah, I can't remember what the
when
name
they done
was.
that Night of the Doctor or something.
Yeah,
like
I think
that.
that's it.
Yeah, exactly. It is the Night of the Doctor. But anyways, when they done that and the sisters give him the potion so he could choose his qualities of what he wanted to be with his next regeneration, that was my first. And then I got looking into it, and I was like, "Holy shit! This cat got robbed." He was supposed to have been the Ninth Doctor, or I guess he's the Eighth Doctor, and he was supposed
to. He was supposed to have that movie was supposed to be a made for TV. It was a made for TV movie anyway. It was supposed to be a backdoor pilot to create a new series. It was actually going to be created and done by Fox here in the U.S. versus.
I think that's why I got shit all over by the traditional fans. That wasn't a British, lit, so to speak.
So the movie itself only pulled like a 5.5 rating, so Fox didn't see it as a profitable enough to move ahead with it. And I thought maybe that was the same thing too, what you just said. Maybe the British fans weren't into it, but actually he had a very long run, and he was very complimented by a lot of the fans. So I don't know if it was so much that, or if it was just Fox didn't see the money there. But Fox
in the '90s now. I mean,
they tried everything. You remember the Generation X movie? to get an X-Men movie off the ground, the Nick Fury movie with David Hasselhoff to get that started off. And they tried everything, and if it didn't make exactly what they wanted, they scrapped it right away.
Immediately, they didn't give it time to look and see. They've done so many shows in I'll say the mid '90s to probably early to mid 2000s that some of them were really great. And you get one season get you hooked, and
or you get 1 or 2 episodes on Fox, and then they immediately throw it in syndication, like when they did Mutant X, which had nothing to do with the Mutant X comic, but had the same name, and they did like 2 or 3 episodes, and all of a sudden, we don't like it, so we'll just sell it off because we paid for the first season altogether. It just goes off into some obscure channel, and you catch it on DVD like 10 years later.
UPN back then when UPN was nothing.
We can't say that there's much more now, apparently, since they're still losing money.
They're still a non-profit organization.
But they did come out, and just as an aside, they did come out and say that they've actually signed Superman and Lois and The Flash again, as well as like several other drama series, and announced that they're doing that to build their basis for their coming years. And I was like, dude, you're up for sale. Give it up. You ain't got the coming years.
I know it's off the beaten path. I really want to start watching that. I'm on the fence, so to speak, on that Superman and Lois show, because some things I see how that look really great. But their Bizarro / Doomsday thing is like, what are we doing here? It's like you tease it like Doomsday, then it's supposed to be a Bizarro, but he talks normally.
No, he actually doesn't. He talks backwards. Like his actual speech is like Zatanna's. Every word is spoken backwards. The only reason you see him speak in English and where we can understand is because when Superman actually captures him and takes him to his fortress, his AI of his mother at the fortress actually can translate what he's saying into normal speech.
Okay, well maybe that's the clips I've seen. Almost like he was speaking the same. It was like,
he has to go there to do it, because when he's not in that little captured cage or whatever at the fortress, he actually speaks. Every word is spoken backwards like Zatanna's is. So it's very. He's from a mirror universe. He's not actually a clone in this, so that kind of makes sense when they brought up, hey, he's from a different universe, but it's a mirror opposite of this one.
Well, I like that better. I'm fine with that. I mean, I don't know. That's all. That's a subject.
We'll come back to the Doctor here, but to your point, I was the same way with the modern ones though. Like I didn't watch Christopher Eccleston when he came back. I was like, okay, they crapped on the movie I liked, and I didn't really care as much for the classic one, so. I saw it on TV and I was like, I don't really care. And then they got to David Tennant and I just watched 1 episode and I was like, I'm sold, because it was really interesting. And then I was only like 2 or 3 into his run at that point, episode wise. So I went back and watched his, and then I went back and watched Eccleston's, and his was actually pretty good too. I don't know. I think they were still trying to figure out where they wanted to go with the story when they had him, and then whatever reason he wasn't happy there, and you could kind of tell it in some of his later appearances on his episodes. And his wasn't as good, so if I'd have started there I probably wouldn't have stuck with it, but starting with Tennant I was able to go back, and then going forward I was happy.
Well, when I went back and watched it, I had to power through some of the first few episodes with him. I wasn't really sold on him, and then he started kind of winning me over, I guess, by 2 episodes out before his regeneration, and it was like, well, damn, I kind of hate to see him go now, but I know where it's going, so you're happy he's going at the same time.
I think I got disengaged with him the most in the episode where he runs into the Daleks and he just goes completely crazy and like banging it with a wrench or whatever it was and yelling about him, acting like he hates him, but he's also scared to death of him. I was like, this
very
is a little weird. Yeah. And that might have been just because of what I'd seen in the past and what I'd already seen of David Tennant. I was just like, I don't get this, because I was going back and watching it in between new episodes of Tennant, because it wasn't like I was sitting there binging it at one time. So I was like, this doesn't make sense to me, but okay. What have you thought about some of the other more modern ones, though?
I was not a fan of Matt Smith. I'm still really not, honestly. I pretty well, when he regenerated into Smith, I was like, okay, we'll see where it goes. A couple episodes in, I wasn't big on him, so I just kind of faded a little bit, and then I come back when they done the what was the Day of the Doctor, I want to say it was. I come back then, and I was like, and I was like, you know what, this guy's not as bad as And it was nice to see him and Tennant and the War Doctor all on the screen together. And so I kind of went back and watched some of his stuff. But Capaldi, I really loved him. He was very, very good. If it comes straight after Tennant, the fans probably wouldn't have, or I myself wouldn't have dug him as much. But, you had that buffer there, which is unfair to Matt Smith, honestly. But
yeah, I think he was a good evolution of where the character went, because when you go from David Tennant, who's still upset about what he did in the Time War stuff, but trying to move forward and make peace, and then he has a personal connection with one of the companions, which is something they really hadn't done in the past. And then you go to Matt Smith, who's trying to come off of that run of David Tennant, and he's trying to just, hey, I'm going to be slightly different, but still kind of the same, but I'm going to be a little more lighthearted. And that made sense. But then after the Day of the Doctor and all that stuff, and you saw he has to relive what he went through again and all, for him to go to Peter Capaldi next, which is kind of the grumpy old man out of that group of the new ones, that made a perfect sense for the evolution, because why wouldn't he go back to that, that mentality? And the fact
that's why I liked him so much.
I like the fact too that they brought up how he chose that face. Like normally he doesn't get to choose his regeneration, but he remembers that face from the episode where Peter Capaldi played a character in Matt Smith's run.
The Pompeii episode.
Yeah, was it Matt Smith's run? Was it Pompeii or was that David Tennant's? I don't remember.
It was Tennant.
Was it? I couldn't remember, but I remember him saying, "Hey, he recognizes his face," and then he remembers at one point in an episode of where he'd seen it before. And I was like, "That's actually a pretty good callback to that."
That was very neat, because I was like, hey, as soon as I seen the first one, I was like, wait a minute. And then it was like, but I always like the regeneration part too. Is like figuring out who they are. And it's like, oh, my ears are they noticing the differences and comment. Yeah. He was the first one I heard say, why am I talking with a Scottish accent? And I was like, that's great.
That and every one of them ask, am I ginger? They want to know if they've got red hair. For whatever reason, that's been like a running joke.
Who would you say is probably who is your one that you kind of go to as your quintessential Doctor?
I think I have to go with David Tennant, just because I like more of his overall arc in his episodes. But I will say that Matt Smith had some really great emotional speeches to me, and those stood out a lot. And he had the best music to me. I liked his music better than any of the rest of them's Doctor theme. But Peter Capaldi had one or two just speeches that were just like, especially the one where he's the Zygons are on there and they're hey, we're gonna destroy each other, and they've got that little box in front of them to hit the button in the box, and he goes into the game show speech, hit the button in the box, let's see what happens, everybody go to war. That one was just like, wow, he really showed out in that one. But yeah, for me Tennant is, but I also look at them too and say, okay, look at him in the real life as well, right? So David Tennant's married to the daughter of one of the earlier Doctors, like number 6 or 5, or so I can't remember exactly which one. But he's married to one of his daughter. He's come back for the 50th anniversary. He's done a few other events. Matt Smith has come, said he would come back for any of them, so he's a big fan of it. He actually had they have a concert hall, and they were having concerts and stuff, and he and the girl who played Clara were actually going to the concerts, and they were part of the actual concert stage show. They would come out and talk. Oh, wow. And they'd go out into the crowd and do stuff and all. And I've seen it on YouTube. But when they do stuff like that, or they say that they'll come back, that stands out to me. Like that's one of the things I was a little disenfranchised with Ecclesian not coming back for the 50th. And I've heard different stories. I don't know if he didn't come back because he didn't want to, or if he didn't come back because he was busy. Because I've heard both stories. So like one story said he didn't because he was in the middle of a movie shooting, and one of them said that he just didn't want to. So that kind of turns me off to them being my Doctor as well.
Well, I heard he left on sour grapes. There was a deal where him and the producers were not clicking at all, and it was a really bad experience for him, and they wasn't happy either. So
yeah, and that's one of those things to me. I'm like, yeah. So if they're not willing to come back, if they're that disenfranchised with it, then it's hard for me to say that. Well, that was my Doctor, because I'm never going to see him again.
Yeah, I did see an interview where he said he regretted not coming back. That looking back now, he battles bipolar as well. And then his father,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, his father had passed away from dementia.
Oh, and wow.
He's really terrified that's one of the, I guess, hang-ups the guy has apparently is he said terrified that he's going to have the same thing.
Mm.
So he's kind of a bit of a bitter fellow, but he said he didn't realize what it had meant to the fans for him not coming back. And looking back, he really wished he'd have done that with the fans, that, you know, to leave something behind.
Yeah, but that's something interesting too about all these modern ones. And well, you answered your own question first, and then I'll mention what I was going to say. But you asked who my quintessential one is. Who is yours?
Favorite, hand down, is Tenants. I mean, I love everything about his. They shut him into episodes again tomorrow, like it was rumored. I'll go right back to watching. But I don't know, there's something about Peter Capaldi that just, he gives a good embodiment of it, because he seems to be a mixture of the Baker Fourth Doctor. He bypasses all that BS with the next few, and he has a little bit of that David Tennant in him as well, because he does the rock star thing here or there with the guitar and the glasses, which I kind of do, but he also has this crotchety old man from time to time too. So
he reminds me so much, especially in that Christmas episode where they shot it and they had someone standing in as William Hurt, the original Doctor, and he's not William Hurt, was it? I might have said the wrong name. I can't remember the original Doctor's name now. It escapes me.
No, I have it. William Hartnell.
Hartnell, excuse me. I don't know why I went William Hurt. That was General
who
Ross.
Played him, was it?
William Hartnell was the first Doctor, but in that Christmas special, because he's passed away now, because he was old when they shot the original one. But that Christmas special with Capaldi and somebody standing in for William Hartnell as the first Doctor, and you saw that crotchety old man and the even crotchetier old man. That was actually a good cross. It's like, okay, he's being more like the first Doctor at this point. And I'm
trying to find the name of that cat that you're talking about right there, because he actually played him. They done a kind of like a documentary type movie.
Yeah.
On the original actor, and he played him in that, and then he done so well that he come back he was in a few episodes as the first Doctor. Yeah. But that episode, that's where they're both regenerating.
Yes.
He's like, the original Doctor's in mid-regeneration. He's trying to fight it off, and then Capaldi's trying to fight his regeneration off, but they're both realizing, he's trying to help his older self. It's a really great episode.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that one. But one of the things I was going to mention, because I know you're looking up some information there, but you look at what the old Doctor Who shows, I don't remember, and maybe it's because we didn't do as much across the pond acting back then with the movies and stuff, but I don't remember a lot of their actors who were in that becoming super famous, getting into other movies and being worldwide celebrities like they are now. But like David Tennant's in so many movies and stuff now. Matt Smith is in movies, fixing to be in Morbius, and what I've heard which is terrible reviews of that movie, he was the only highlight of the movie so far. But Karen Gillan as Amy Pond, she's been in Guardians of the Galaxy and Jumanji and all these other big movies, and I don't remember seeing anybody move from Doctor Who to big screen movies back then. And I was younger, so maybe I missed them. But
no, I think it's typecast. I mean, it's just something that happens when you play an iconic character. Sometimes you do get typecast, but we're so used to seeing people jump and change characters nowadays that they wasn't, say, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And this bothers me because I have this right here.
Yeah, I don't remember the guy's name. I just remember him looking so much like Hartnell. I was like, wow, he's a great stand-in.
Anybody that is a Game of Thrones fan, they know him because he is the orchestrator of the Red Wedding. A highly, highly good, great episode. Very sad. But he gets his just dues at the hands of Arya Stark later at the end. But he's the same actor that plays that. You need to watch that, Monster. I'm telling you.
Dude, I've got so many other things, and I'm so far behind. I doubt I'll ever make it to that one to actually watch it at this point.
You are doing yourself a grave disjustice.
I've done that to myself more than once. So
yeah, it happens.
So with some of these, we talked about who our quintessential Doctor is, but who are the villains this year? Who are your Doctor Who villains? Because he has a great. I hesitate to call it Rose Guy because a lot of his villains are not repeats necessarily, but he's got a few that are repeats that are really, really good to me.
It's easy to just throw the Master out there, but to me, I really really dig the dialects. They're great. And I don't know, probably the Cybermen I always thought were super cool.
I
The
like those.
creepiest one is the Weeping Angel, though. I mean, they actually have and I was really thinking back on it last night, like, other than if you turn and look and see their feigned face when they're doing this, what's to really fear from them? Because they don't really kill you. They just send you to another time.
Yeah, those are the creepiest ones to me, like the scariest wise. Now, the creepiest looking ones are the Zygons. Just the way they make them look when they change out of their shape shifting and they're in their normal form.
Like this big
That is
crawdaddy,
Yeah,
so
that
to
is a
speak.
gross looking monster. And that was one of his earliest ones too. He may have even faced them before he did some of the other. Cybermen, Dialects, and Zygons were like the first three that he went against that I can remember. But the Master was one that I was like, it's cool that he's got somebody else from his race to go against. But after David Tennant's Master was good, but any one of them after that just kind of was like, we're just repeating the same thing. Just give him a different personality a little bit.
I like David Tennant's Master a lot. That guy had truly villainous vibes, but he was also charismatic enough to make you like, shit, I almost want to like this guy. And you
Yeah.
see why they were friends at one point. And I wasn't super sold on it when he became Missy.
That
They did a
didn't
good
bother me.
job. Well, to begin with, it did. After a few episodes, it actually kind of grew on me, and she became her own entity and character to the point where it was like, okay, I can get into this because she reminded me a lot of Rowena from Supernatural for some reason. Like they had
That's a fair point.
that villainous vibe to them, but at the same time, it's like, damn, I just like them. Wow.
And if you go back and watch that movie from '96, Eric Roberts' Master was actually pretty good because it's hard for him not to play a good villain. I don't remember exactly everything he went through in that movie, but he was more diabolical evil than the Master when he was in David Tennant's run. I don't know the cat who played him. I can't remember his name, but he was like a charismatic, evil that you kind of fell for. He was like the Phantom Menace there, but Eric Roberts' Master, he had an evil plot the whole time, and you could tell he was the bad guy. I mean, it was just
nothing likable or like, oh, you're a piece of shit. You're just bad.
There was nothing about him that was a redeeming quality. He was just straight up, this is my plot. I'm going to take over and do this and that, and that's the end of it.
Well, who are your big quintessential villains for them then?
Dialects is always good to me. Is always going to be his number one villain just because of their Time War stuff. But Cybermen were good. Zygons were creepy. Weeping Angels, I like the Silence too because they were creepy.
About them.
They were creepy looking, but they were also like they had a plan the whole time, and you forget about them as soon as they're out of your view. Short of somebody like him,
you saw what I did there, right?
Yeah, I saw what you did. So I was just gonna let it roll.
That's a really good episode or two there.
It is, and that was one of the. I'm trying to remember. That one was the one with Matt Smith where they actually shot some episodes and set in America and stuff. And I think they actually were shooting over here and all. Because didn't he go to the White House and all with the president?
Yeah. It was supposed to be Kennedy was in office.
Yeah, that was some great. They had some great plot lines. Since we've talked about the villains a little bit, what about some of the companions? Which companions did you like and which ones did you not like?
Oh, Donna, right off the rip, I hated her.
Really?
I hate her. Oh my gosh. I loved Rose. What Doctor Who fan doesn't love Rose?
Yeah.
But I will say my two favorite there's no way around it. You love them for different reasons. Martha Jones and Clara. That's my two. Like when Clara dies, oh my gosh, dude. Ooh.
That was a heart-wrenching one.
I hit me in the old feels, like for real. Like I thought I lost a member of the family for like 3 or 4 days. It's like, man, this sucks.
Rose was my number one. My 2 and 3 were Clara and then Amy Pond. I really liked how Amy and her story. Like her story was so different than what a lot of them went through. I will say that where I didn't really care for the classic ones, but when they bring Sarah Jane back, who's actually the same actress from the third and fourth Doctor's time when she's back. And yeah, it was for a spinoff show, but she showed up so many times during Tennant's run on there, and just tying in that. But I liked what was it, Captain Jack as well.
Captain Jack was a fun character. He really was.
And I actually I couldn't stand Dinah at first, but I got to where I liked her. The only episode of hers I cannot watch is when the bug is on her back, because that whole thing about the big beetle being on her back is just so creepy to me. It's like makes you cringe. Like, is there something on my back? that one.
But she was the one whose grandfather was in all the episodes, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I liked him because the old man, his name escapes me at the moment, but he was a fun, adorable character too.
He was. I tell you who I couldn't stand though was Rory, Amy's husband. I liked him with some other stuff, like when he was on Legends of Tomorrow playing Rip Hunter. I liked him, but on Doctor Who, he just annoyed me so bad. He was always.
Why is it when Weeping Angels touch other people twice, they disintegrate and turn to stone, but yet this son of a gun just keeps transporting through time? Like, I'm immune to this shit.
Yeah, he I don't know what it was about him. He just annoyed me so bad. And I'll admit, I don't care for any of the. So I'm going to delve into one that I know you're going to hate here, but the current Doctor, was it Jody Whitaker? She is not bad as a Doctor. She has been given the worst scripts and the worst storylines to work with. Her characterization and her acting is not bad. The stories she's given, there ain't a whole lot you can do with them. But her companions, she started out with 3. They had so little faith in her, they gave her 3 different companions at one time to start with. And 2 of hers, the guy and his grandfather, terrible. The girl that's with him is not bad. And I cannot remember their name to save my life because I watched those episodes and they're so forgettable that it's just, they escape me. But she wasn't bad, but the 2 that were, man, that was some of the worst ones I've ever seen. That and the last one that Capaldi had. I started liking her at the very end of her run. I didn't like her at the beginning. Billy Potts.
Billy. You know what? I actually liked her. She kind of she grew on me. I'll put it that way.
That's
first episode or 2, I was like, you're just a little too sassy for my taste. Yeah. You're still reeling from Clara. And then, I don't know, she grew on me. And by the end, it was like the deal with the Cyberman and everything they went through was like, oh, shit.
Yeah. That was, I enjoyed her by the end, but to start with, I didn't care for her.
And this was a subject I knew we would get at some point, but the Jody Whitaker thing, I mean, because I hadn't watched since 2017. The last episode I actually watched was her leading into her first episode, the regeneration. I was going to, kind of like with Matt Smith, wait and see how it panned out to see if I wanted to go back. And I just kept hearing bad things because they were just so woke the first few episodes. It was incredibly off-putting to the point where her first 4 episodes, they lost 1 million viewers.
Yeah.
Like that thing is viewed massively over there. Well, throughout the world, honestly. I mean, it was something like around 5 million viewers almost. And they dropped down to like 3.5 million viewers within 4 episodes. And it's like, whoa. Like, that's a lot. So I know at this point, it's not just me just being a jerk and not wanting to support this change, so to speak, but and I've heard some good things, some hit and miss, I guess, because of the from what I understand, the scripts the poor girl has been given are terrible. Like she has one here or there that's good, which all doctors have that supernatural type season where you have 3 or 4 really great episodes and like then 3 or 4 more, but hers is more like one occasionally good and then the rest is
Yeah, and that's the thing with her. Like some of the storylines they've given her, and at this point, it's not necessarily spoilers because this is her last season is already out over there. We just haven't seen it in the U.S. yet. It should be on HBO Max sometime soon, within the next few months, from what I hear. But which is where I've been watching them lately. But when they go and they say, okay, how does she portray the Doctor? She does an okay job of being the next regeneration of the Doctor. It's a different evolution, different personality slightly, but it's still some of the key features are still there, right? That's not bad. But when they give you a storyline that says, okay, you're going to run into the Master again, and it's going to be this new person, and okay, you can make that into a decent story. But when they get to the story and say, hey, you're going to tell the story of how the Doctor is actually the first Time Lord, because they, the Gallifreyans are not Time Lords. It's not just that they all get 13 regenerations. They found you as a child, as an orphan on a planet alone. You're the only one there, and you keep regenerating through time. And then not only do you regenerate 13 times, which is the reason that's a rule for the Time Lords, is because they experimented on you and took that and created that ability for themselves and took that on as Gallifreyans and became Time Lords. So now they all get that, but you have an endless supply, because even when you hit 13, you just start over again. It's like, well, that kind of negates a lot of the stuff you told in some of Matt Smith's stories. And
that's exactly what I was just going to say, because, and I had read something about that, the timeless child, the timeless
yes,
children. She was a
timeless,
timeless
yeah,
child.
yeah,
Um, and I was like, that just really shits the bed on everything that you established beforehand. Because I mean, they were very, very adamant that, William Hartnell, when he went from the first Doctor, that was his very first regeneration.
yes.
And he was several hundred years old at this point. So
That the way that I'll give them the way they try to retcon that and say, okay, yes, because you were experimented on, so the Gallifreyans could get the same ability that you have, so that they could have a taste of immortality, and their people could extend, because they were reaching a point in their life cycle where it's like, hey, are we procreating enough? Are we cloning people? Whatever it was, I don't remember the exact thing, but
yeah, they went
we're
from
not,
non-biological children
yeah,
to the
yeah,
weave or the womb.
yeah, and we're not having as many new ones. So how do we continue our race? Well, that was their way to do it. But they said that they basically pulled a Wolverine and said, well, while we're experimenting on, wipe their memory. So as far as William Hartnell's Doctor knows, this is his first life, and every time they get to the end of a full regeneration cycle of 13, they're like, and it starts over, which makes no sense to even have the 13 rule if you're going to say they recycle it anyway. But when it starts completely over, their mind is wiped anyway after the 13th. Like he or her, whatever, the Doctor's mind is wiped every time they start back over completely anyhow, regardless of what they did to them. But for William Hart, it was like, okay, we will erase what happened before, but for every time after that, after they reach 13, it's like starting a brand new, being reborn. It's almost so if you've read any of the X-Men books lately, Moira McTaggart's mutant powers to be reborn every time she dies, she comes back with her memories. They actually take that part away and say, okay, after 13, you start completely over like a fresh person. You still are this person biologically, but you have no knowledge of any of the 13 lives, versus during that 13, you still remember those past lives.
So she doesn't remember nothing from her other 13 existence.
She started to in some of the later episodes of her first season or two there, or whatever it is, because I think there's 6 for a season, but like her first full run at the end of that Timeless Child story, she starts to, and then she meets another version of herself that's another female Doctor from a different time, which they've gotten away from that whole thing of you can't run into your past self. Because you're a fixed point in time because of your lifespan. They kind of went away from that in the 50th anniversary special, right? Because they were 2 or 3 of them there at the same time. So that didn't bother me when she ran into herself as another
Actually,
person.
at one point when they're doing battle, they're all there at one time, because you have all the TARDISes there kicking ass.
So they kind of went away from that old rule, which was fine with me. So when she shows up and she's got another Doctor who's another female version, and during that episode, you got the feeling that that's another Time Lord or something, but they never say it's actually the Doctor until you get to the end of that episode. And the lady who played that was actually really good. That was one of the better scripted versions of the Doctor for her series. It's just they're telling a story that negates so much stuff and trying to say, well, yeah, the reason the Doctor is the best Time Lord is because really the only true one. But it doesn't make sense. It's like, well, how did they come to be? Or are they a celestial being and gave themselves life, or what? I'm not sold on what they were trying to do with that, but the writing for that show is what's bad. The dialogue that they give her.
Is it a case where, kind of like what you mentioned, Wolverine, once you remove the mystique, do you unveil the curtain too much to see the wizard behind Oz? Are we getting to that right there with the Doctor?
That's kind of what it feels like with hers, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's because the showrunners they have are just not that good for it, or if it's because they're trying to fit modern days, like you said, their woke agenda. Because the first few episodes were like that. Now they kind of backed off on that a little bit, and I don't. Some of that stuff doesn't bother me. Like at the end of this current season, they say that Jody Whitaker's Doctor actually has romantic feelings for her companion, which is the female companion that sticks around for the entire thing. I have no problem with that.
She's been a male for 13 existences. That of course she would, but
yeah,
you know what? the Doctor Who, let's just say, they've always been progressive, anyways. Because I mean, back in the Rose Tyler, her and Mickey. I mean, they were, an openly interracial couple. You had, several that were lesbians or gays or whatever throughout. So I mean, they've always been progressive, which is fine. As long as the character and the story justifies it, great, no problem. I mean, but just don't push it down. Don't be woke to be woke is my thing.
Yeah, some of the stories with Jody Whitaker's has been, and I'm trying to remember the entire episode, but there's some where they're trying to tell, oh, these people are like this one kid who's on there. So they've always had characters of every race and everything. They had this one kid on there, and hers there was a African American, or no, I shouldn't say African American. He wasn't from America, but this one black kid that's on there, and they treat him. They try to say, well, he's mistreated by the police and stuff, and just because he's black, and they're trying to tell the story of he's trying to figure out all this stuff that's going on, these strange happenings and these aliens and stuff, but he's getting blamed for stuff. I'm like, well, why did we have to even go to the point of blaming him? Why can't he just be figuring out the story? It was it was a very wedged in there into the episode, and I'm not doing the justice to explaining it, but they just wedged this whole police thing into the episode. It's like, why are we even bringing the police into it? Most of the time, they never even run into the police in this show.
That's the thing. You've had many people of color in the Doctor Who universe that have been heroes and great companions or companions. I mean, you got Martha Jones, Mickey, you got P.E. All of those wound up being great characters for multiple episodes. So you don't have to do that. I mean, it's...
Yeah, they just, and that's the thing. They tried to wedge in, and it's, this was in pandemic times, and we've seen the riots for defund the police and everything else, and it's like they were just trying to wedge in police are bad into this episode. It's like, why did we need to include that at all? Because the rest of the story had nothing to do with it other than this 5 or 10 minutes in the show, but then it kept popping up like 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, 5 minutes there, and they kept referencing back to it. I was like, why are we still talking about this?
This should have been over. To piggyback on, the trend at the time of people being not very intelligent and wanting to defund the police, and whether your stance is on that or not, but they were probably hoping that would be something to draw the new viewers in, or younger generation that thinks it's cool to do some very not intelligent things sometimes because it's what people do.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They were just trying to force that in to fit into whatever's going on in the rest of the world. I'm like, dude, I watch TV to escape the rest of the world. I don't need to see the same thing in there. I'm watching this to get enjoyment. I mean, it's like I'm watching David Tennant episode with the werewolf, or the one with the giant bee from outer space, and all the bees are going missing because they're not from Earth and they're here in the scene or whatever and leaving. I'm like, there's none of that that I think is realistic. So I'm okay with that because I'm just trying to enjoy watching this. I don't need you to
T-Rex in the middle of New York.
Yeah, I don't need you to beat me down for everything else that's going on. I get enough of that if I turn on the news or open my phone.
Let's be honest. That's why we watch science fiction, horror, comedy movies. They're very unrealistic. Or whether it's you're reading comics or whatever, your video games. Every bit of this shit is very unrealistic. We do it to escape reality. We have enough shoved down our throats as far as what's terrible in the world. You don't need it in your entertainment too.
This is true. And since you brought up the comics and stuff, let me ask you this, because we'll be close to the nerd out section in a little bit. But a couple of things I wanted to ask: have you ever picked up any of the comics or read any of the comics and stuff of Doctor Who, or has it just been strictly just the TV shows?
Strictly TV for me. The only thing I've done off the beaten path that wasn't TV was I had Lego's Dimensions, and I got the Doctor Who expansion.
Yeah.
Which was Capaldi too, but it was pretty cool to fight Lego Daleks and Cybermen. And somewhere around here, I do have a little Lego TARDIS. Yesterday, since I packed the Manroom up and kind of got put into my quarters here, so to speak, a lot of things are in storage or, in boxes here or there. So I was like, damn, where did I put this at? Because I was thinking how cool it would be but how about you?
I haven't ever. I've had a few comics when it's like free comic book day and they have something, and they're not bad. I don't know. There's something about them I'd rather just see them in action on the screen than I would read it. And even novels and stuff. I've read a few like synopsis on. Like, that's actually probably a good story. I don't know. I just don't want to sit down and read it. I'd rather just watch him. Now, I will say that I have thought about this, and again, this is TV versus comics or whatever. But I've always wondered what would an animated show for him be like, because there's so much more stuff you can do animation wise that you might not be able to afford, and a budget on a TV show for the special effects.
That's an unlimited budget when you go with animation, because all your money is in artist voiceovers. You don't have to worry about explosions costing you out the ass or any of that stuff. So
yeah,
that'd be great. I think
I'd actually like to see just this animated miniseries. It ain't even got to be a full one, and you can do it on any doctor from any era, I think, or if you want to do a new one. But I think it would be interesting just to see an animated version, just for. And kids, actually, I think as a kid too, I probably would have gotten into it more if it had been animated from the get go. But like, my son enjoys watching the live shows. But when I first was watching them and he was younger, he didn't care about them until the last 2 or 3 years. Now he's like, yeah, let's watch it, because he likes them now. But he's older now too. He's 14, so it's like, okay. By the time he hits 11, 12, he's a little more into the plots. If it had been animated, he probably would have watched them from the get go, because now he's like, that's some great stories in some of those that we didn't have. That I didn't watch.
How profitable would it probably be to take those older seasons that maybe quality wise don't stand up as well? Because I mean, let's face it, some of the first Cybermen were pretty terrible looking, and special effects would have were what they were. What if they just took the voices out of those and put some great animation with those? How well do you think that would hold up today?
Probably pretty well. I mean, I would give it that treatment like they did with the Supernatural anime season. When they had that season of Supernatural that they went back and I don't know if you've seen it, but there's an anime season of it, and it's the first season of Supernatural. All the stories from the first season, and 4 brand new, completely animated episodes that were set between some of the episodes of that. And it's all animated in an anime style, but it's like you can go a little bit further with it, and it's actually pretty good to rewatch those episodes. And it's not scene for scene the exact same. Now, it's the same story and it's the same overall aesthetic of the scene, but they may show it from a different perspective, like, oh, we're watching it from Sam's perspective in this, but on the anime, we're watching it from Dean's perspective for that same exact happening, right? So it's not taking and animating just what you saw on the screen. It's actually just animating the story.
I'm going to be honest, as a Supernatural fan, I am ashamed to say I didn't even know this existed. So where did you watch this?
I actually own the DVDs. That's the only. So when I moved, not this last move I had when I moved to Ohio now, but when I moved to Missouri, I had like the first 7 or 8 seasons, and I had the anime season on DVD, and all of them disappeared except the anime one during the move. I don't know where they went, but the box with them must have been left behind or moved, or somebody grabbed it and took it somewhere else or whatever. But I still have the anime one.
I have random seasons here and there from like the middle to end of the show. I didn't know there wasn't an animated season at all, though. Yeah. I would actually go back and rewatch it. I've seen the show 3 times, so I mean.
Yeah, and there's 4 brand new episodes that are only in the animated series. Now, the only problem that I had with the animated series was you've got the voice of Sam is Jared Padalecki. Jensen Ackles, because this was at the time when he was shooting some of those movies, like what was it? He was in My Bloody Valentine or something. Mm-hmm. Because the way they recorded that series, he could only do the last 3 episodes. So somebody else does his voice in the first however many episodes it was, and then the last 3 it's him. But it was just a timing thing. They just couldn't make it work. But they wanted to get the series out there while it was still so popular at the time. So it's actually pretty good. I've got it. I've probably watched it once, but those 4 episodes, I don't even remember what was in the extra 4 episodes, but there's 4 extra episodes in it as well. I want to say it's 18 episodes for the season, but it might be more. I'd have to go look at it. I haven't watched it in a while.
It might be an episode later for us at some point.
Yeah, and I'd like to buy the DVD set they have now that has the entire series on it, but I hear every time I look at it and I see it drop in price, it started like $250. I've seen it down to $150 to $180 on some sites, and I'm like, well, dang, I might could afford that and get the whole season, because that's the whole series, right? 15 years worth of it. But then I hear horror stories about it, and the reviews are like, the disc are the same disc from the regular box set, which, okay, that's fine. There's nothing extra. I'm fine with that. I don't really care. I just want the series. But then they're talking about the cases for them are terrible. They're falling out. The disc cases, half the discs are scratched up when you get them, like the print on the front of the Blu-ray disc and all. was like eating off of them. Like they just took the ones that they didn't sell before and they just stuck them in a new package, put them back out there. They didn't even put new discs out there. They just like, this is still good enough. Throw it in the package. And that's the horror story. That's why I'm like, that's a lot of money if they're going to be messed up.
I'll wait till they're at Ollie's for $90.
That or wait till they come out with a re-release like the 10-year Smallville one just did, and it's all in one small box and it's really tight and they're not falling out and it's actually new discs.
There you go.
Yeah, but with that, I think we're close to Nerd Out segment. So for anybody who hasn't been here with us before, we always ask questions, just random questions. We put each other on the spot to have to answer without any preparation for it. So we'll ask the questions and we'll give our answers. But if you want to give your answers as well, feel free to do that in the comments. Or if you want to expand upon something we said, please feel free to do that there because we always love to hear everybody's opinion about this stuff. But we'll move into that segment. Hassel, do you have anything you want to start with, or you want me to go first this time?
No, I want to piggyback off what we were just saying. All right, say you got bags from a big studio, major budget for an animated. Would you do movie or season? Who's your doctor? Who's your companions? And villains?
If we're doing it the same way that they shoot it in today's world, I'd probably do season because you can get more story, because a season for them was only 6 to 8 episodes typically. And then we look at it in the US and say, well, a whole season is like 2 of their seasons over there, right? But you get 6 to 8 episodes to tell the whole story. You get more time into that story. You can delve into it more. I think I would go with I'd go with David Tennant as a doctor, and I'd like to see how he has to deal with I'd like to see him actually deal with the Weeping Angels, because I don't remember him ever having them in his run. I think they started with Matt Smith's run.
No, they started with Tennant.
The
episode.
Oh yeah. You're right. Because that's the one where they have River Song and they're in the blacked out area and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The black guy gets sent to the past, and then he meets the chick in the hospital as his older self.
Okay, you're right. I was thinking. I remember them more from Matt Smith's run, because that's how Rory and Amy's story ends up with them in that alternate timeline. Him reading the book and stuff. They had a lot more episodes with him. I don't know. I think I still stick with him because I don't think they got enough screen time with him to do anything much.
No, they are a really great suspenseful villain. That's actually pretty fun.
I think for a companion though, I'd like to see him actually meet Clara, because he's met her in the Day of the Doctor, but he didn't have as much interaction with her really. So I'd like to see him have to deal with her, because she was a little bit more sassy than Rose, or maybe not more so than Donna, but Donna was more annoying sassy than Clara was.
That's fun.
What would you go for?
I'm going for 6 episodes. And the Daleks are the villain. But I'm going to have it to where, for some reason, Christopher Eccler and Capaldi have to work together. Because I feel like they would be opposite ends, and just both of them just bantering back and forth, 2 pissy old men kind of. And I would love to have Rose and Clara both there, like just before Clara dies, maybe. Like it's around that time frame to where it's days prior or something. That could be like a pretty cool little.
That would be an interesting, because they both dealt with Daleks in a completely different way, and
yes,
and they were both very set in their ways. Like they're not going to listen to anybody else about what they want to do. So that would be an interesting one to see how they react to each other.
That would be neat to me. A good back and forth. So what you got, Monster?
So I got one that's just I was curious of this, and I'm going to put a caveat in the question too. So excluding Jody Whitaker's Doctor, you have to remove one Doctor's run from the history of Doctor Who. Who would you take out?
Wow, that's
And I excluded her because I know you would have went for her first.
Oh, hands down.
That hit him hard when he's got to reference the notes.
Yeah, because you got to kind of almost look to see who made the least impact, so to speak. I'm gonna probably go. I'm gonna probably go with the Fifth Doctor. Any doctor that wears celery on his shirt. I mean,
He,
as a
he was
lapel.
the young one at the time, right? He was like the youngest one up to
Yeah,
that point, wasn't he?
he was the youngest one. He was the one that kind of wore the Panama Jack looking outfit, get up, so to speak. I guess try to look very polo-esque. So, with the little get up or whatnot. They try to make him a little too hip for my taste.
Yeah, that's not a bad choice. I'm torn because the second Doctor to me really didn't have anything.
You wasn't digging that Mo haircut?
No, but no, he had some good villains introduced, I think, in his season that have stuck around. But he just, I don't know, there was something about him I just didn't care for. But the third one to me is the one that had the season that I cared about the least because he's stuck on Earth. He's not traveling. He's not doing this. Now they introduced some great companions in that season, like Sarah Jane pops up in that one, and but now she continues into the fourth one. But some of the stuff where he's got connections to Earth's government, the unit, that Britain creates, and he's running unit for them. That's probably the only thing I think I would miss out of his season. Other than that, I just didn't. I don't know. He didn't do anything for me, and I could have just took him or left him. But I will admit that the sixth and seventh Doctor, I don't remember a lot of their stuff either, so it's hard for me. But I remember some certain things being introduced in theirs that's like some of the quirkiness and stuff after Tom Baker that they built upon that stuck around. So I'm hesitant to take either one of them out.
I'm gonna throw a little whammy at you and do a little bonus question here. Just strict, not fan favorite, not your favorite, my favorite. Who do you feel is probably from a show's syndication and keeping the show alive? Who is probably the most important Doctor, actor wise, and least important Doctor?
Uh, from keeping it alive perspective, you said.
Yeah.
I
I
would
mean,
think,
this shows had a longevity of 59 years. I mean, we're nearing
yeah.
the 60th anniversary. So something had to build that.
So I would say for me, I think I have to break it up a little bit. But like, so if I look at the classic, I think Tom Baker because he had the longest run out of anybody. He's your one who kept it alive back then. Far as not doing anything for the show at that time, I don't know if it would be the sixth or seventh or the third because it just something wasn't didn't gel with them. Oh well, actually, I'll take that back. I know exactly where I go. I consider the eighth one classic, even though he was a little bit later in the 90s and stuff. But he was the end of the run, so he's probably the most least influential out of any of them because it ended with him, and whether he was good or not in the role, nobody was doing anything with it. Right, the property just ended there with him. So I'd have to say he's probably the least influential out of any of them. But modern era, most influential, I don't know. I got to go with Tennant because I think he gets more attention from anybody else, and he's the one that brought people. Like I could have, if I'd have watched Christopher Eccleston first, I probably wouldn't have stuck around. If he'd been the one that was everything was dependent upon to keep moving, and depending on the success of his season, that would have ended it or not, he probably wouldn't still be going.
Fair enough. Fair assessment.
Tennant, I think, kept it going no matter what. I think Matt Smith had a very popular run with the fans as well as bridging some gaps that maybe some of the others had not. Even with David Tennant, like Matt Smith was almost a little more relatable a lot of times than Tennant was.
Even with his caveman eyebrows.
Yeah, but he ran around and he would put on the fez and he would do funny faces and act crazy and stuff. But it's just one of those things like I could see me running into this dude somewhere in public, right? And David Tennant was so far out there with his portrayal of the Doctor that's like, yeah, we'd have probably never spoke if I'd have saw you in public. You were a little too bougie for me.
Okay, fair assessment. Fair assessment. And you're dead on a lot of that. Tom Baker to me is probably the guy that just solidified the fan base and made the property what it became.
Yeah.
If Tom Baker hadn't come along, I don't think they would have got much further down the pike. Because you look at the next few doctors, it's a steady decline.
Yeah, and it was a decline before him.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I mean, he kind of I feel like he took the reins and pulled up to get the the nose out of the ground and get things back going and establish the fan base that wound up being there for quite some time. And David Tennant reestablished that in the modern era because I mean he was like you said, Eckler was but he come along and he really. That's where the second boom happened, so to speak. So you got these two booms. Least important was and it pains me to say this because I mean he's a hobbit, but I mean Sylvester McCoy. I'm going to say he's probably responsible for the Eighth Doctor not getting a fair shake because of the fact that that's where the show started to truly decline in popularity. And I'm not saying he was a bad doctor. Yeah. It's just where it started to decline in popularity and go down and. Just the fans lost interest at this point.
Yeah, well, that's where you lost, the BBC backing it and then going with another season, and Fox in the U.S. here trying to start another one and keep it going. And Sylvester McCoy was in the movie. He dies in the first bit of it and regenerates. I mean, yes, he's handing off the torch, but he handed off a torch that was dwindling down to it might have been an ember at this point.
It was that match that burns twice at that point.
Yeah. That's a fair assessment. Yeah, that's a good point too, because I always look at it like the eighth one didn't get anything out of his, as far as.
Yeah, it's hard to judge him because he didn't get the shake to see what he could or couldn't do. Honestly.
Yeah, that's actually a fair point. I mean, maybe it was just because of what he was being handed off into. So. But I think with that closes us out for today. But before we leave, we've got several shout-outs we've got to do. First one being to our friend Daniel Garcia. Remind everybody, keep a lookout. His Kickstarter for Xyber Ronin is coming up pretty soon. I've seen he's been posting a lot of stuff on social media, whether it's on Facebook at Daniel Garcia or on Instagram at D Garcia Comics. You can check that out and see that Kickstarter is coming soon. He's been putting several new prints or artworks on there, and also the link to the Kickstarter has been in there as well. I don't think it's live just yet, though.
No, he sent me a sneak preview of the what it's going to look, and it looks pretty badass. Looks really great. I'm excited. Plus, he sent me a sneak preview of what the first issue entails, and it looks really, really great. I'm excited about this. It's a huge honor for us to be a small part of helping him out with this, and it's we got a huge event coming April 23rd where he will be live at the Zone Collectibles in Tifton, Georgia, doing a meet and greet, sign. We're going to have free black and white issues. There's going to be prints. We're going to be there. We're going to do a live show. So it's a lot of excitement that day. So he's a really great guy, and we're super proud to be a small part of this.
Yeah, and since you brought him up, we're going to be doing that at our sponsor, the Zone Collectibles store in Tifton, Georgia. And also, you can find them for all your nerdy needs on thezonecollectibles@gmail.com and on Facebook at Zone Collectibles. Remember, come out and support Daniel Garcia as well as the local artist community and help support their cause of bringing unity through community. Fandoms unite. And with that, we also still have giveaways going on. So, Hassel, I know we've got someone already picked out for this weekend. Random generation through comments and stuff on everything. But we had a really cool comment this time, and so we wanted to make sure we took a moment to check this person out. So I'm going to try and say this right, but I think it's Shields of Higram. Funniest comment I've seen in a while on one of the shows. So yes. we did a little more than random this time. We said, okay, we got to recognize that one because that was a great one. But if you can reach out to us on any of our social media, and Hassel will tell you where you can find us on those anytime, or on the show where you replied, maybe we'll try to reply to you and get your information there, or at least find a way to link up with you and get your information and send out to you. But Hassel, what is the prize this go around?
We have, I actually have a Doctor Who $1 million print, and then I've got a few other odds and ends I'm gonna put together. We've got a pretty sweet prize package this go around. I don't have it on hand with me at the moment to actually show and reference, but we got some cool things in there.
Awesome. And remember, all you got to do to enter these giveaways is, like, comment, subscribe, or share on any of our social media platforms, which Hassel will tell us where to find those at now because I'm terrible at remembering how to get to them.
You can find us on Twitter at NerdyMR Show. You can find us on Instagram at the Nerdy Manroom Show. You can find us on Facebook at either Hassel Hutchison or the Nerdy Manroom Show. It's a dual page. We're working on getting the name adjusted, but Zuckerberg was not friendly when I started this page. So,
and join us next time. We're going to have our special interview with August Aguilar that we had to push off from the last couple episodes. But until then, live nerdy in your home. That's probably bigger on the inside.